Do you remember the last time we spoke, what the topic was about? Margin siblings. Does that ring a bell? The idea was if you manufacture and sell a product to consumers, it's in your best interest to know the margin siblings. Quick recap. The margin siblings are three margin calculations that any producer and seller of a product needs to know in order to make sure they're making money. The margin siblings are gross margin, contribution margin, and net margin. Well, after the last video, a client of SBS reached out to me and was like, hey, buddy, I need you to run me margins on this beer. And I was like, music to my ears. What took you so long? He's like, but there's one beer in particular I want you to look at. Okay. And the one beer I want you to look at is we're making it and we're also contracting it. So I was like, perfect. No problem. So we got all the information. We ran it through the calculation. And you'll remember what I said before, right? That the average net margin on any wholesale product is somewhere between 1% and 5%. And what that basically means is after all expenses are paid, after everything is said and done, you're going to keep between 1% and 5% on your wholesale products. Okay? So we go through and we run the margin. The beer that he's contracting, he's only doing it in half barrel SKU. So I honed in pretty close on that one with what he was making it versus what he was contracting it for. When the numbers came back, the in-house made beer had a net margin of negative 5.33%. This is very common for a half barrel. Half barrels are a losing proposition in most cases. When you take what you sell it for, what it costs the ingredients, and everything it takes to sell that half barrel, and you look at the price, they're most often losing products. So in this case, a negative 5.33% was par for the course. Now I looked at the contracted half barrel of the same product, and I went through, and it was a positive 15% net margin. He was making 15% on every half barrel that was being contracted on this particular beer. So I went back and I was like, wait a minute. Did we allocate all the right expenses, right? Did we allocate all the right expenses? So we have a gross margin, right? We know what we're selling the beer for. We know what the beer costs us to make because the contractor told us that. Do we have a contribution margin? Well, no, because all the contribution is really built in at the contractor. We're using their labor. We're using their overhead. We're using their materials. We're using their maintenance. Is there any G&A that would help calculate the net margin? And I said, you know what? Just for shits and giggles, let's add $15 a half barrel in G&A. And I'm saying that it's costing you $15 per half barrel for your selling, for your marketing, for any other, for your travel, for anything that needs to help this beer sell, right? Which, that's a lot. That's a $30 a barrel for sales and marketing for a beer. That's insane. That is absolutely insane, right? But just to really juice this thing up, let's put in $15 a half barrel. When I ran it with that $15 a half barrel, we were still at a 13% positive margin. We were at a 13% positive margin on half barrels of this SKU. So I jumped on the phone with the client the next day and was like, hey, take a look at these numbers. And he was like, no, we have some contribution. We have some. I was like, what's your contribution? The beer is being made at the facility. The beer is being stored at the facility. It's being picked up by your distributor at the facility. It's not even using your pallet jack. It's not even using your cold room, the utilities of the cold room. What contribution do you have? What G&A do you have? When the smoke settled, I advised the client the next day to call up the contractor and say, hey, we need to move all half barrels to you and potentially all production to you of this particular style of beer. So, huge difference, negative 5.33% versus a positive 13% net margin. What's the moral of the story here? The moral of the story here is if you can find someone who knows how to operate their overhead better than you may want to go have a conversation with them. If you can find someone who has operational efficiencies better than you may want to go have a conversation with this person. And finally, if you produce and sell beer, you need to click the button at the bottom of this email and let me run margins for you just to get an idea of where you stand. I can't believe that you're not clicking the button right now. But just in case you're not, click the button, let us run a margin analysis for you. Consultants will get on the phone and give you a quick understanding of what's going on. Talk to you soon.